water, earth, fire, and air. Even if you've never seen the show, you probably know the setting. But the brilliance of Avatar isn't just that people have superpowers, it's that the powers actually shape the societies they live in. The geography dictates the politics, and the politics dictate the history. There's a reason the Fire Nation had an industrial revolution while the Water Tribes were still living in igloos. There's a reason the Earth Kingdom is a bureaucratic nightmare. So, let's take a tour across the map. We're going to look at the economy, the culture, and the mindset of every nation to figure out how this world actually functions. Welcome to the Lore Garden. Let's start with the Air Nomads. Now, calling them a nation is actually kind of a misnomer. They didn't have a king, a capital city, or a currency. They were a monastic order dedicated entirely to spiritual enlightenment. They lived on the four corners of the map, high up on mountain peaks that were basically inaccessible unless you had a flying bison. This wasn't just for the view, it was strategic. They detached themselves from the physical world to be closer to the spirit world. They split their population by gender. The northern and southern air temples were for male monks, while the eastern and western were for the nuns. Here is the wildest stat about them: because their culture was so deeply spiritual, the Air Nomads were the only nation where 100% of the population were benders. In the other nations, benders are a minority, but for the nomads, the magic was baked into their lifestyle. And those blue arrow tattoos? They aren't just cool ink. You only got those once you mastered the 36 tiers of airbending, or, like Aang, if you invented a completely new technique. Their element is air, the element of freedom. In a fight, an airbender almost never hits you head-on. They spiral, they evade, they look for the path of least resistance. It's about negative space and finding the angle no one else sees. They were pacifists, vegetarians, and lived in harmony with nature. Unfortunately, that pacifism is exactly why they were wiped out. They had no standing army. When Fire Lord Sozin used the power of the comet, he targeted them first to kill the next avatar. It was a tactical genocide. For 100 years, their culture was effectively extinct, surviving only through Aang. It wasn't until the harmonic convergence in Korra that we saw the rebirth of the Air Nation, but even then, the new generation struggled to adapt those ancient, strict traditions to modern life. Next, let's move to the poles. The Water Tribes. If air is about freedom, water is about change. Uncle Iroh said it best: water is the element of change. These people survive in the most hostile environments on the planet, so they have to be adaptable. They rely on community and deep emotional bonds to survive the freezing winters. Politically, the tribes are split, and the dynamic is fascinating. The Northern Water Tribe is the powerhouse. They have a massive, fortified city made of ice that stood unconquered for 100 years. But that security came with a cost. They were incredibly conservative. For centuries, women there were forbidden from learning combat bending. They were relegated to healing huts until Katara shattered that glass ceiling. The Southern Water Tribe, on the other hand, was decimated. By the time the show starts, it's basically a collection of small villages and igloos. The Fire Nation raided them relentlessly to capture their benders, leaving them with almost no defenses. It's a scrappy, survivalist culture compared to the aristocratic North. And we can't forget the third group, the Foggy Swamp Tribe. These guys live in the Earth Kingdom wetlands and prove just how adaptable waterbenders are. They don't manipulate ice, they manipulate the water inside plants. They're the hillbillies of the Avatar world, but their connection to nature is arguably deeper than anyone else's. The most unique thing about waterbenders: they are the only benders dependent on a physical object in the sky. Firebenders have the sun, but waterbenders draw power from the moon and the ocean spirits, Tue and La. This makes them vulnerable. If you mess with the moon, you mess with their ability to bend. It's a magic system tied directly to the tides and the celestial cycle. Then we have the Earth Kingdom. And honestly, this place is a geopolitical mess. It covers almost the entire continent. It's huge. It's diverse. And it is incredibly hard to govern. Because the territory is so vast, the central government in Ba Sing Se barely controls anything outside its own walls. The Earth Kingdom operates more like a confederacy of city-states. You have Omashu, built into a mountain with its own king. You have Kyoshi Island, which stayed isolationist to avoid the war. You even have sandbenders in the Si Wong Desert who live like nomads and don't answer to anyone. Let's talk about the capital. Ba Sing Se is a dystopia wrapped in a utopia. It has massive, impenetrable walls, which is great for defense, but inside, it's a rigid class system. The poor are stuffed into the lower ring, while the elite live in the upper ring, ignoring the war entirely. The Earth King was merely a figurehead. The real power lay with the Daili, a secret police force that brainwashed citizens to maintain order. Their element is substance. The mindset here is stubbornness. In combat, an Earthbender utilizes neutral Jing. They don't dodge like Airbenders, and they don't attack aggressively like Firebenders. They stand their ground, absorb the blow, and wait for the perfect moment to strike back. This resilience is why the Earth Kingdom survived the war for so long. You can knock down a wall, and they will just build another one. They are the definition of endurance. And finally, the Fire Nation. For most of the series, these are the villains. But from a civilization standpoint, they are arguably the most advanced. The Fire Nation is an archipelago of volcanic islands located on the equator. While the Water Tribe was fishing and the Earth Kingdom was throwing rocks, the Fire Nation went through a full-blown industrial revolution. They had access to coal and steam power way before anyone else. This technological gap is the real reason they were winning the war. It wasn't just about shooting fire, it was about tanks, airships, and massive steel battleships going up against wooden spears. Culturally, the Fire Nation is obsessed with honor and hierarchy. We see this in the Agni Kai, ritualized duels used to settle disputes. If you lose, you don't just lose the fight, you lose your social standing. Their education system was basically a propaganda machine, teaching kids that sharing their prosperity with the world was a moral duty, rather than an invasion. But the tragedy of the Fire Nation is that they forgot their own roots. The royal family taught that fire comes from rage and destruction. But if you look at the Sun Warriors, the ancient civilization Zuko and Aang visit, you see the truth. They learned from the dragons that fire is actually energy, warmth, and life. It's the heartbeat of the world. The Fire Nation isn't inherently evil, it's a nation of innovation and drive that was corrupted by a century of anger. Now, if you look at the map, you see 4 distinct colors. But if you look closer, there are pockets of civilization that don't fit into the standard 4 nations box. These are the hidden civilizations, groups that evolved in total isolation. First, we have the Sun Warriors. For centuries, the world thought they were extinct. In reality, they were hiding in the ruins of their ancient cities to protect the last 2 dragons, Ran and Shaw. Politically, they have nothing to do with the Fire Nation. While the Fire Lord was waging war, the Sun Warriors were keeping the original flame alive. They don't view fire as a weapon of destruction, they view it as a heartbeat. They are the keepers of the true source of firebending. Then, deep in the Earth Kingdom, you have the Foggy Swamp Tribe. Technically, they are waterbenders, but they are thousands of miles away from the poles. They migrated there centuries ago and adapted to the wetlands. Culturally, they are the total opposite of the aristocratic Northern Tribe. They don't build ice palaces, they eat possum chicken and live in huts. But their bending is incredible. They developed plant bending, manipulating the water inside vines to create massive swamp monsters. They prove that you don't need ice to be a master waterbender. And finally, the Sandbenders. Living in the massive Si Wong Desert, these guys are basically land pirates. Because sand is loose and shifting, they developed a unique bending style that treats Earth almost like water. They sail across the dunes on wind-powered catamarans. They are loosely governed and care very little for the Earth King's laws. They are survivors who respect the desert above all else. These groups remind us that the world isn't just 4 solid blocks of color, it's a complex tapestry of cultures surviving in the margins. So, what happens when you mix all of this together? After the 100-Year War, Aang and Zuko founded the United Republic of Nations. This wasn't just a new city, it was a new way of life. It was a melting pot where benders and non-benders from all traditions lived together. It represents the evolution of the world. The strict borders of the past dissolved, and we moved from a world defined by separation to a world defined by connection. So, if you had to pick a passport, where are you living? Are you chilling in the air temples, navigating the politics of Ba Sing Se, or enjoying the tech in the Fire Nation? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, check out my video on the spirit world right here. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep exploring.